everyone, welcome to a new episode of He's Not Wrong. I'm your host, Chad D, and I'm joined here today with who I would say an Instagram Dem celebrity, James Crocker.
Oh my gosh, wow.
There we go. How are you, James?
I'm quoting you on that. I'm really great. I'm joining you. I hope my quality's not too bad because I'm here in DC right now. This is Logan Circle. I don't know. Where are we? What neighborhood is this? 14th Street, Logan Circle-ish. But I don't know. I'm living my best DC life right now. So I'm thriving.
Do you live in DC?
So I'm relocating. I'm relocating to DC just before we go on my Fight for America tour this spring. But I grew up and I still currently really technically live in East Granby, Connecticut. It's a tiny town of like 5,000, counting the cows in Connecticut, like at the tippy top of the state on the border of Massachusetts. And it's so funny because every time people are like, oh, like, where are you originally from? I'm like, Connecticut. And they're like, oh, Connecticut. No, I'm not from both. I wish.
My mom is from Waterbury, Connecticut, and so
Waterbury, I know Waterbury. Yeah.
Whenever I tell people, yeah, no, my mom's from Connecticut, and they look at me, I'm like, no, not
that part. It's Waterbury. Trust me, you would know if you go there. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like Connecticut, I feel like we're known for like Fairfield County. You know, that's like the 1%. But trust me, the rest of the state is not like. That's just kind of boring, to be honest. Like, not to hate on my home state. Love CT, but excited to be out right now.
Look, I'm all for hating on your home state. I'm living.
Where's your home state?
Alabama.
Alabama. I was like, it's somewhere southern. I remember that. Wow.
I mean, Tommy Tuberville, Katie Britt, Kay Ivy. They all just keep my fire fueled.
Yeah. Kay Ivy.
I can't leave now. Have you seen it just came out. It's the HBO Max documentary, Alabama Solution. Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't. What's it about?
We're going to connect offline on this. It's about pretty much Kay Ivy and our Attorney General and the problem that is the Department of Corrections. And so
I heard about this actually, and they had the prisoners like film inside the prison, right?
Yes, they were snuck in phones. Yeah.
It was awful.
Yeah,
I heard something about this. I haven't seen it though. I have to put it. I have like so many things on my list of like need to watch, but I've just been so busy. I don't know about you. It's like it feels like a million things at once. Like our whole government feels like another reality show in itself.
No, it is at this point.
And like I can barely watch Veep anymore because it's like, oh my gosh, like this feels like an under exaggeration of what's going on right now.
I watch Veep. Every single year I do a rewatch of it.
Right.
And the more I watch it, the more realistic it is. And they ended it because they said it wasn't satire anymore. It was too similar to the way things are going. And I just finished it again for like the 9th time last week. And that final episode, or the final few episodes, I should say. Right. It's just a mirror image of our government right now. It's scary.
It really is. It's wild. It's the vibes are so interesting here in DC right now. Because I was just yesterday, I was on the Hill with the Democratic Women's Caucus with my roommate Catherine. She's there. Do you want to say hi? Hold on.
Hello. Nice to meet you. It looks beautiful outside. Oh my god.
We're thriving. It's a little cold, but it's all right. We're in the sun now. But so we got to go on the Hill, and it was literally like the coolest day ever. I don't know if you saw my Instagram story, but it was so official. Like they put us in this round table room, and I was like, okay, round table. Like it's probably gonna be like some like influencer thing. No, like it was a full-on round table, and there's us in the background. And I was like, this is too official. Like, I don't know if we should be here. And then we went with them to this presser with like a lot of the members of the Democratic Women's Caucus. Adelita Grijalva was there. Yep. So it's super great to see her. Unfortunately, this like reporter from the Mike Lindell show chased her off, so I couldn't get to talk to her. But I saw her, and she's so sweet. Oh my gosh. They need to swear her in right now. Like, genuinely, it's absurd.
She was on the
to talk to her, right?
Yeah. She was on the podcast last week, and she was the most genuine politician I have ever spoken with. We had a conversation after, and I mean, her love for her community and her desire to actually get to work is so evident.
Exactly.
It's so messed up what's going on with her right now. I'm so happy that you got to meet her.
I was so happy too, because I remember texting you after I saw that you did an interview with her. I was like, this is so cool Like, I need to get some time with her. And I was just able to talk with her very shortly, but you can tell, like, even just from the way she, like, holds herself, she's such a sweet, kind, genuine person who's there to represent Arizonans, you know? And
Yep.
the fact that they haven't sworn her in, it's absurd. I mean, it's so evident that's all with the Epstein file cover up, and it's so wild. It's like if this was happening in any other country, like the entire government would be on the streets right now. Like
Yeah.
they would be out of a job, but instead everyone else is out of a job because they shut the government down.
How are the vibes with the shutdown in DC right now?
It's like, and you know, I haven't gotten too much time to really do a good vibe check, but like on the Hill, it's weird because like there's still a few school tours and stuff, and like we saw them yesterday, but all the staffers there aren't getting paid, and I'm pretty sure it's like something like maybe today or next Thursday. I don't remember the exact date that their paychecks are going to start to bounce. You know, they're not going to get paid because of the shutdown, and yet they're still there. They're still on the ground. And I was talking to one of the staffers from the Democratic Women's Caucus, and she told me, she was like, you know what, I may not be getting paid, but I would still rather be here doing the work to try to help everyone instead of just sitting at home like enjoying this like unpaid vacation.
That's the difference between Democrats and Republicans. I have a former friend who I have excommunicated in the past few weeks, and I went on a little deep dive on a Finsta to see, okay, like, are they in DC or not? In the story that I saw, they were on a flight to Europe. They're genuinely treating it like a vacation.
Like a vacation. Yeah, it's absurd. And you can see it, you know, from the people who are still in the city. A lot of them are still clocking in. Like they're still doing their work despite the fact that they're not getting paid because they genuinely care about our country. They genuinely care about America. And so it's wild, it's sad, and I hope that Mike Johnson and House Republicans get their shit together like ASAP, because it's a mess. It's a hot mess, and it's not looking good for them either. They're not winning the narrative. I mean, many statistics and like facts are showing that this is the first time that Democrats are actually winning the narrative war. They're winning the social media messaging war, because it's not like messaging or anything. It's literally just straight facts that Republicans shut the House down. They shut the government down because they control every single branch of government. And it's so funny that they're trying to be like, actually, it's Democrats. Because, like, it doesn't add up. The math's not mathing.
Have you come across any Republican staffers or any consultants in DC who are like publicly, visibly, they're MAGA, they're Republican, they're pro-Trump, but they're annoyed with their own party behind the scenes? I'm very curious on that topic.
I have, and I haven't gone to talk to as many just because I haven't been in these spaces too long yet. But from the ones I've talked to and from people my friends know as well, this is, you know, even among Republican politicians, you know, Congress members and senators, they're not happy because they're the ones whose phones are being blown up right now by angry constituents who are like, hey, like, I don't want my healthcare to get like cut. I don't want, you know, my daughter to be out of a job because she works for the federal government. So there is definitely, and I hate that it's like sort of on the down low right now that they're keeping their anger private, but it's because they know that as soon as they go public about it, Trump is going to retaliate. And that's the big thing that he's been doing. I mean, he did it to Thomas Massey. He's working on doing it to MTG, to Marjorie Taylor Greene. And it's wild. It's the crazy thing is, like, these are not the people you would have expected to somehow, like, be saying the right things now. For Marjorie Taylor Greene to be on CNN being like, hey, guys, maybe healthcare is important. Like, absolutely, it's the truth. But it's wild that those are the people who are now turning against Trump. And she was his, like, number one biggest defender. So, yeah, there's definitely been a lot of private discourse, a lot of disagreement with Trump and Mike Johnson and the actions of that entire administration. I'm just hoping, and I don't want this to be prolonged, but I'm hoping that eventually, you know, as long as this goes on, people are going to start publicly coming out about it, that they're going to publicly be disavowing the administration, that possibly even like hearings are brought against him, whether it's impeachment trials or anything like that. It should be. I mean, frankly, we're beyond impeachment at this point. Yeah. But it's like, I don't know. I think people are finally beginning to wake up. I'm really excited for No King's Day this Saturday. Yep. Because it's going to show the current administration and people, you know, around the world that there are Americans who are fed up with this. Like, we're not happy about this at all. And in big numbers too. Like, so I'm really looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to large numbers. I'm going to be here in DC for their No Kings demonstration. And yeah, I mean, hopefully it'll spur a larger movement.
You know, it's interesting what you just said about the shutdown and people speaking out. One thing that I have been saying about this entire shutdown is like it was planned.
Awesome.
Trump knew what he was doing. He wanted this shutdown to happen, thinking it was going to backfire on Democrats. It's going to backfire on him. But it
Yeah,
also, when you look at it at like 40,000 feet, and I just had this thought, it is beyond impeachment, right? This is
it
why he
is.
got the
Yeah.
cabinet that he has, because he knew this was going to go beyond
He
impeachment, and
knows
he
that
needs
they're
to,
loyalists.
yeah,
Yeah.
he needs to make sure that that 25th Amendment does not get
Oh,
invoked.
absolutely. Absolutely. Because really, we're at the point where a trial by jury, a trial by his peers
Hmm.
needs to happen. But yet, he's designed and orchestrated the government, and not just himself, because I can't give him so much credit, because we're not dealing with a very smart man. It's the
No.
people behind him. It's Stephen Miller. It's, the people who work with JD Vance. It's Peter Thiel, and Rupert Murdoch, and, all those crazy billionaires, Elon Musk as well, who are really pulling the strings throughout this orchestrated authoritarian takeover. And it's jarring because this is something that's been years, really decades in the making, and they're finally
Yeah.
getting to play it out. And that's why things are going so quickly right now, because this was all planned.
Yeah.
So it's wild, but there are ways for us to fight back. And I think this Saturday is going to be a big example that we have the numbers, and we don't need to wait until the midterms to really create a change. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not calling for like us throwing the government out or something, but like there are things that we can do. There are things that representatives can do, and that's going to include impeachment proceedings. And I hope that that's something that people start to call for, more often, more publicly.
So one thing about fighting back is there's so many different ways to fight back, and it looks different for
Exactly.
everyone. And earlier you mentioned that you're going on tour in the spring.
Yes, yeah.
Can you talk
So
a little bit about that?
absolutely, I'm so excited. So it's called Fight for America with a four like this. And basically, they don't want me speaking. So basically, I mean, we're doing a mini tour this fall and winter, but I bought a school bus from Facebook Marketplace for like $3,500 with some of my summer savings, and we're planning on using that school bus and a few other vehicles and turning them into, I don't know if you've seen this on like TikTok or anything, but they call it schoolies with a K, Skoolie. And basically they live in their school buses. Like, they convert the inside into like
Hmm.
a RV type like camper situation. They insulate it, they put a bathroom in there and everything, a bed. Like, it's literally they're living in these school buses, and they go across the country, they go to national parks and all this like really cool stuff. I've been loving that. I was like, I want to do that. And then I realized at the same time I also want to be touring the country right now with my friends and doing a lot of the work, but in opposition of what Charlie Kirk and what Turning Point USA is doing,
Yep.
because they've spent years and hundreds of millions of dollars into indoctrinating our youth. And I'm 18, I'm a college freshman. This is something that's really important to me, because all the time I'm always seeing from my friends, there are anti-abortion tabling stuff. There are anti-American, tabling at these universities, and they're totally allowed because it's their free speech, but the stuff they peddle is really scary. It's really insane. And it works because we're young. Like, our thoughts and opinions are still being shaped by our environment. And so when you see a large movement around, anti-abortion and anti-voting rights and pro-gerrymandering and like just anti-American values, you'll think, oh, surely this must be the route to go down to. And that's why Charlie Kirk was so popular, because honestly, the majority of his audience weren't even fans. They weren't people that supported him, but the content that he created had a lot of entertainment value. He created rage bait YouTube content. He would post,
Yes.
oh, Charlie Kirk, like, liberal gets teared a new one by Charlie Kirk. Like, Charlie Kirk destroys like white liberal women, whatever. All this like nonsense, and it would do millions of views online. It would do numbers.
And it's that stuff right there. Being in Alabama, obviously, I'm surrounded by
Oh
the
yeah,
Republican MAGA base, but it- there are so many people that have zero idea what Charlie actually stood for, because all
yeah.
they see are him or videos of him debating college kids who a lot of the people who are speaking with him they haven't fully formed their
They haven't
beliefs
fully formed
yet.
their views, absolutely. And it was so evident that this wasn't exactly a smart man we were dealing with, because
Yep.
anytime he would debate someone with further fully formed political views or who'd really done their research. I mean, there's a video of him at the Oxford Union, I believe, just getting absolutely destroyed because he stood for nothing. He
Yeah.
stood for nothing. He stood for these rage bait bullet points that his team would deliver him, and that's what, I don't know, bullet points is the right word. These rage bait messaging
Yeah.
that he'd be given, and and that's what he'd use, and that's what he'd push, and he'd just peddle whatever he's getting paid to do. And now we're seeing that with the people who are doing well. I mean, Benny Johnson, he's everywhere right now. That
Oh my
twink, I
God.
hate him. But these were people who were literally getting paid by TRT Media, by Russia, and there was a big exposure of all this money that was coming in, and yet now they're currently working with the Trump administration very publicly in press conferences. They're helping push their DHS propaganda, and it's absurd. I mean, literally on our way here from Noma, we saw this huge billboard for Tim Pool and Tim Cass. It's getting blocked by Tree, which I loved. I'll show you. But it's so stupid because literally, not even a year ago, the Biden, DOJ was literally investigating them because they were getting money from Russia, in the tune of hundreds of thousands a month to push their messaging. And
Yeah.
that's the issue that the Democrats have, is that we're not getting paid to do this. I don't know about you. I'm not getting paid hundreds of thousands a month. I wish. That would
Yeah.
be great. A lot of us are doing this because we're genuinely passionate about this work. And so we need more investment in democratic messaging and messengers who are doing the work. And we've seen a lot of great messengers move from this movement. I mean, literally the I've Had It podcast and Jennifer and Ms. Welch and Pumps and Pumps, they're so great. They're killing it. They're holding Democratic leaders accountable while also at the same time holding Trump to account. And I think that's how you got to do it. You got to balance it out a little bit, but you can't also just pledge loyalty to the Democratic establishment, because a lot of their non-action is what's gotten us to where we are today.
Yeah. And I'm assuming you saw the Cory Booker interview
Oh, that was
clip.
so good. That was so good. I reposted that everywhere because I was like, this is genuinely and he was taken aback. He was taken aback by finally being held accountable by podcasters, instead, because if he goes on MSNBC or CNN or even Fox News, they're not going to be asking him those same questions. So that's why I think independent media is so incredibly important, but it's so great. I mean, they were genuinely asking him, is Netanyahu war criminal? And he couldn't answer.
No.
It's a simple yes or no, and he couldn't say yes. And it's sad, and it's shocking, and it shows you, a lot of the foreign influences and its undue influence on our American politics. It doesn't make sense. And it's so silly because Trump's big thing was American first, and yet he's there smiling with leaders from Qatar because they gave him this multi-million-dollar jet, and now he's literally building, I think it's Ohio, I don't know where it is, but they're building that army base for Qatar in the United States. That's
in Idaho.
Heard of in Idaho.
Yeah.
It's so wild. I'm like, American first or your pockets first? What's going on there?
I'm gonna have to use that line. I love that. That's true. And he was standing at the White House with the Argentinian president after giving him $20 billion.
Billions of dollars, and then he threw him a rock concert. Wait,
he threw him a rock concert. I did not know this.
You didn't know this? Oh
No.
my gosh, I'm gonna pull up a photo. It's crazy. Yeah, he threw this massive rock concert to promote his book. Argentinian president rock concert. Oh, it's so funny. And it's genuine. It's parody. It's beyond satire. It's even worse because it's real life. Here's his rock concert.
Jesus Christ.
And he just looks crazy. And he was promoting his book throughout all this. This is Javier Milei. I'm the king and I will destroy you, Argentinian president. It's absurd. Apparently there's fire going on. There's pyrotechnics. And now it's our money. Our money is going towards that instead of universal health care. So it's really sad, honestly.
It is sad, and to go back on the topic of the I've Had a podcast, the one thing that I really appreciated them doing was, yes, they were trying to get a simple yes or no answer. Right. Is Netanyahu a war criminal? But the thing I thought was a little bit more poignant was when they pointed out he took APEC money and they cornered him, and he tried to diminish the impact that accepting any money would have. Well, I've raised tens of millions of dollars. $880,000 is nothing. It's you accepted.
You've accepted millions. It's absurd, and it's also, it shows how out of touch our politicians are on both sides, really. Because for someone to be like, oh, 800,000, that's nothing. What are we talking about? Like, that's life-changing money for the average American. It's sad. But yeah, and their propaganda is everywhere. I mean, this is Timcast. This is the massive billboard in Noma. It's like so wild. And he looks so stupid. Him in that beanie. Take off that hair. Like, what is he hiding? Is he balding?
Listen, I've said this a million times before, and I'll say it a million times again. The Republican Party, their biggest issue, and I say this in jest, but it actually is an issue, is their graphic design.
Low-key.
Their photography and their graphic design. It's a really big issue. It's really scary. It's ugly. It's horrible. And so anyways, I think that goes in line with.
No, I agree with that. Well, and also like some of the theming and graphics and the colors, tones that they use, you know, it's all pushing this weird sort of like authoritarian vibe.
Yeah.
Like they want to make it look intense. They want to make it look scary. It's like, why? Like, we really need to question why they're pushing that.
But I mean, you see such a good point. It's so brutalist and
it's so
sharp. Yeah.
It's wild. Well, and
wow.
I just reposted this, and I'm going to show it to you, and then we can move on to the book. But there's just so much going on. I just reposted these photos from the Washington Post in Chicago. This is like current. This isn't like a movie or anything. This is literally like, look at this imagery. These are members of the Army, of the National Guard, of DHS, of Homeland Security, putting guns at U.S. citizens, at Americans. It's absurd. Here's like someone in like one of those inflatable suits getting arrested. It's just like the absurdity of the whole thing. And that's what I've loved about what they're doing in Portland. I have a lot of friends who are there right now as well on the grounds. But just the fact that they're satirizing, you know, they're in inflatable costumes and they're making fun of the fact that Kristi Noem and DHS are being like, these are violent protests, these are anti-American, and then they're literally dancing in like inflatable dinosaurs and stuff.
I want to speak to those a little bit before we get into the book review, because I had this conversation with my parents this past weekend after listening to a Pod Save America episode where they really laid out how they use ICE to stir the pot. They deploy ICE, and then they send out Republican MAGA influencers to then film and video ICE on the streets, to which then Trump uses that footage from those influencers to justify bringing in the military. But then they release photos like that, and then that's what the American public sees, and it does look violent. It's not, but it's very much staged to convince people, to convince that base that it is necessary, and it's absolutely not.
Yeah, and it's all goes into this propaganda machine that they're using, and they're using these influencers. And I mean, it's very similar to the work that Israel's been doing to cover up their genocide. You know, I saw a recent post where it said that influencers are getting paid up to $7,000 per post to promote, you know, Israel and the IDF's propaganda and be like, no, this isn't a genocide. Like, no, the children aren't starving. They're well fed. They're fine. Versus when you see actual journalism that exposes the truth, like, it's like, no, that contradicts everything that you just said, every lie that you just told. So it's sad and it's scary, but I think at the end of the day, it's important to remember that these people aren't the majority. They're just like the outspoken few, and they're really annoying. Right now, they have a lot of control and a lot of power. But ultimately, we do have more power because there's power in numbers. And so I'm really excited for the Saturday. I'm really excited to see a larger national movement spur from this. And I think ultimately at some point, we're just going to have to boycott everything. Like, stop going to work or something, because it's absurd. Like, the fact that they're pulling all this and we're expected to just resume to like regular life.
The amount of times I've woken up and I'm like, how am I supposed to work today? The world is on fire.
Yeah.
And I'm supposed to work in Microsoft Word today? What?
Yeah. It's like, it's absurd. It's wild.
Well, James, as you know, the topic of this podcast episode was going to revolve around 107 Days by Madam Vice President Kamala Harris. So, okay. We have to preface all of this with, it's the day before Kamala is in Birmingham, Alabama, where I live. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to her book talk tomorrow, and I have tickets to meet her.
That's
and
so exciting.
You saw her and you met her, and I want to know what that experience was like.
Oh my
What
gosh.
do
Let
I
me
need
tell
to know?
you.
What scent is she wearing? I want to compliment her scent. Is she tall? Is she short? I need
Oh
all
my
the
gosh.
details.
Okay. I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna preface this by saying, like, Loki, I was so like I felt like that the whole thing felt like a dream sequence. It felt
Yep.
so unreal that I was standing with Harry Sisson and his girlfriend, and we were waiting in the line. We were with a whole bunch of other creators because we'd been given meet and greet passes, and I'm standing there with him, like we're talking about it. We get into the room and we see her herself, like Madam Vice President, standing there taking photos with her backdrop and all the members of her team. And I'm like, oh shit, like this is real, like we're in it. And it was wild. And as soon as I got up there, and I have a video of this, thankfully, I'm so glad that a team member was able to take a video just to have it memorized. Because if not, I would have forgotten every minute of it. Because I was like, this is so. I'm sure you can play it too. But it
I
felt like
mean,
so unreal. Like she was there.
now what did you hand her? I've been wondering this. What was that?
Okay, so that it was this. It was a sticky note. It was a sticky note with my name, with the Fight for America bus tour website, and then my phone number and an email address. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna give it to her. I know, like she gave it off to her assistant, and I was like, this is my in. I was able to get a business card. So that's my in. Hopefully, we're able to work out some collaborations. But I was like,
Oh
I
my
gotta
God,
use
that's
this. I
so
gotta
cool.
network. Like that's how I've gotten to where I am now. I just gotta keep networking. So it
I
was it was so wild. And then the person behind me afterwards, we walked out. He's like, "You were like so confident. Like, how are you able to do that?" I was like, "Low key." At the end of the day, and this is true with every politician, you got to remember that they're all humans, and like
mhm.
they love when you speak to them like they're a human being instead of like fangirling over them. And I don't think that we should fangirl over any politician.
Mm-mm.
Kamala Harris, she's like one of my favorites. She's definitely an inspiration. But like she's still a human being. She's still a politician at the end of the day. And that remains true with every single politician. But it was truly such an honor to get to meet her. And that was after the book tour event, which ran for about an hour. And that was the first event of her tour. That was like the kickoff. It's 5 p.m. in New York City, just outside of Times Square. And so yeah, it was such a wild experience. It truly like out of this world.
I've been trying to figure out. I'm like, if I have 30 seconds with her, what am I
What are
gonna
you gonna
say?
say? What are you gonna say?
I
Yeah.
so I think I owe it to her to say thank you. I want to thank her for making me feel hope for the first time in a long time,
Yeah.
and making me feel hope again reading her book
I love
since the
that.
election. So I absolutely want her to know the impact that she has at least had on one person in a red state of Alabama. But there's a caveat to that, because back in 2013, the YMCA has a youth in government program,
Yes,
and
yeah.
I was heavily involved in that, and I was the 2013 Alabama youth governor. The year I
Congrats.
was elected Alabama youth governor, my friend Spencer Perry was elected California's youth governor, and
Okay.
his mom's overturned Prop 8 in the Supreme Court, and Kamala married his mom's. And
That's awesome.
so I was not out at that time.
Right.
I was very in the closet and scared, but
Absolutely. I mean, growing up in Alabama.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I remember having these thoughts back then, like there is one politician out there that's not afraid to stand up for people, and is very vocal about LGBTQ plus rights. And so I want her to know that even at such an early age, a formative age, like I look to her as a safe person who I knew would have my
Amazing.
back. So I have to get that under 30
I
seconds,
think,
but
yeah, I think just, obviously you'll have to condense it, but just be like, I'm a gay kid from like Birmingham, Alabama. Where'd you grow up in Alabama?
I grew up in Montgomery, but I live in Birmingham right
Montgomery. But
now.
yeah, just telling her from Montgomery, Alabama, and like literally you were an inspiration to me back in 2013, like back when you did all this.
Yeah.
I think she would really appreciate, that just real life story from you of the impact that her work has had. And it's truly had such a great impact. I mean, on the life of Californians and on the life of
Uh-huh.
Americans.
Now, whether those words will come out or not, we'll see. I'll let you
We'll
know.
see. We'll see. Of luck. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. She's so sweet. She literally gave me a high five. Like it was so unreal. It was unreal. Like truly, no other word for it. I said hi.
Uh,
I gave her the note. I felt so bad. I was like, I'm holding up the line. But it was crazy. And I like stumbled out of
don't.
there. I started talking to her afterwards. She's like, "You got to get out now." Like, it was so crazy. Yeah, like I'm still riding that high, to be honest. I mean, it's gotten me to DC, it's gotten me so many opportunities, and just meeting her truly was such an inspiration to keep working at this, because I think that's the issue with democratic politics. A lot of the time, reaching these people, it feels very exclusive. It feels like this
Yep.
club that you can't really get into. And
Hmm.
I don't come from wealth. I don't come from a political family. You know, my dad's a 3 times Trump voter. My mom just voted for the first time. Last election, she voted for Harris, of course. But like, I don't come from this political family. I truthfully, it was just more something that I was passionate about myself. And, you know,
Hmm.
I started out in activism when I was 13. I helped lead this Black Lives Matter protest, well, more of a rally in my hometown in East Granby with my sister. And literally ever since then, I realized that like you can use your voice for good, for
Yep.
change. And I've always been someone who's been very outspoken in everything that I do. I love to talk. I love to make my opinions heard. And I was like, this is actually like really important, especially in this moment. And I think that's where social media has really benefited, where I
Hmm.
benefited from usage of social media. I started posting videos. I started posting on Instagram, on TikTok, on Threads, and I began to grow this audience. I began to grow this audience who really like supported my work, who appreciated what I had to say, and they've just continued to fuel my work, both financially and just emotionally. Like genuinely, I would not be in this space if there weren't those people in my life who are like, no, what you
Yep.
have to say matters, you know, and you're truly making an impact. And so I think that's so important for every politician, everyone in, you know, the public sector to hear and to know and to be reminded that the work that they do matters. Because especially in DC, there's a lot of disconnect. You know, it feels sort of like a whole different world here in Washington because we have this beautiful like metro system. It's such a nice place, and you can feel a lot of disconnect from the people in your own districts. You know, who are being affected by these bills, by the decisions coming from
Hmm.
DC, and that's a part of why I'm going on tour, not only because I just want to get a chance to talk to people, I really want to just try and change people's minds. And, you know, obviously, you know, to an extent, you can't change everyone's opinions, but at the end of the day, the majority of Americans aren't extremists. They aren't far to the right, far to the left. They barely even
Yep.
vote, you know? They barely even know what's going on. And I don't say that to make fun of them. I say that because they're busy, because we're all working class Americans. We all have jobs and lives and families and kids to take care of and meals to prepare. So these are people who are disconnected from the political process. And I think it's so important to make it accessible to them, to teach them civics, to ensure that everyone's, you know, current
Hmm.
and aware on what's going on, and just to deliver the facts and let people develop their own opinions. Because I think when you make facts and civics accessible to all, then you begin to get a lot more well-informed voters, and that's what we need. And so ultimately, it's not about treating people like they're voters, you know, absolutely keeping that in mind,
Hmm.
treating them like they're humans, treating like them like they're our fellow peers, like their friends, like their family members. That's how you make way, you know, in this space. That's how you have these hard conversations. And
Yeah.
yeah, so that's like really what I'm all about. We're going to be doing some work in Tennessee this fall with that special election that's going on with Afton Bend. So I'm really excited. That's a
Have
little
you heard
secret,
of
but I'm making that public, I guess.
breaking news on He's Not
Exclusive,
Wrong? I
yeah.
love it. No, listen. Have you heard of the Engage Y'all pack?
Oh, the Engage Y'all pack. Yes, yeah, I have actually.
They
That's
are
from Gabe
getting.
Valamont.
Yeah, Gabe Alamont.
Yeah, you had her on the
She's been on
podcast, right?
a few times. She was at my apartment. We did an
Yes.
episode
So cool.
talking about it on my balcony. But I was gonna say, you and Gay and her team working in Tennessee. I mean,
That'd be
that's
awesome.
a powerful
I have to
group.
talk to her. Yeah. And I think it's so important. There's so many youth organizers who are already in Tennessee who have been doing this work. I was talking to my friend Farah, who's the president of the Tennessee College Democrats, about this. And I was like, it's so important right now to just to get there and amplify and bring in some
Yeah.
more funding and resources, because that's what a lot of the work that Fight for America, our PAC, and our 501c4 is going to be structured around. We're not trying to enrich ourselves. Like, as much as I'd love to be paying myself like $1 million a year, that's
Yeah.
nonsense. There's no need for that. We're trying to deliver funding into the pockets of youth organizers and youth organizing groups that need this money. That literally, I mean, like the college Democrats, they receive such minimal funding. They don't
Yep.
get really any money at all from the DNC, from DNC related and affiliated PACs. And so it's really unfortunate. And there's so much money in politics. There's so much money on both sides. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm not asking for millions of dollars, but you gotta start giving money to youth organizers to help their work. And that's the point. We gotta have a greater conversation about all the money in politics.
Yeah.
Because it's not.
Yeah, we do. And it's one thing that Gay talked about a little bit on when she was on the podcast, and then Mallory, when she was on a few weeks ago, was talking about it. It's the fact that the DNC will love to fundraise off of a candidate, but they will hate to write anyone else a check.
Clock
and
that.
so anywho, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to do some live networking. Are you connected with Gay?
I'm not. I'd love to connect to her.
Okay,
I'm like, we're mutuals on Instagram. I boosted her campaign back when she was running for Congress in Florida. But I'd love to connect. She seems super cool. I've been following Engagel for a little while too. So yeah, this is awesome. I love this live networking.
we're gonna get y'all talking so y'all can get back to Tennessee ASAP.
Yeah. Well, and then Kamala Harris is going to be there soon as well at the end of November. For one of the last events of her book tour. So we're all just trying to connect everything together.
Wait, are you going to go to that event and at the end of October?
I think so.
October, November.
Yeah, but we're trying to see if we can get her involved with the special election as well. So that'd be really awesome.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. It's only about 4 hours north. That district is about 4 hours north of where I live right now. So.
Oh, so that's close.
Yeah,
I plan on
literally. Yes. Catch me pulling up. So I want to ask you on your first read of the book with after having heard Kamala speak and reading the book, I just high level overview. What was your takeaway? Because I'm very curious what yours is to compare it to mine.
It's oh my gosh. Well, I'm going to be fully transparent. I listened to it on Audible and I just finished like 2 days ago on my way to DC through my headphones, but I'd skimmed a lot of it. I read a lot of pages, especially ones that featured my friends and former staffers. It was a lot. It was a lot, especially in the sense that I knew a lot of this and like I seeing it in writing just really validated my concerns. The biggest thing, and I was so happy that she acknowledged it, was the limitations put onto her by the Biden team, by the Biden White House. And there's a reason, why I never attended any events there, why I never personally joined them, just because there are a lot of concerns I had with the way they were working, especially with Merrick Garland himself, who was just so ineffective as a prosecutor. But I just think just the entire team, and unfortunately, when you're in politics for a while, it really gets to you, the power, the fame, the fortune, all of it. It was unfortunate because I knew as soon as they, did the whole reorganizing for the primary so that Biden would get the nomination, it wouldn't be Sanders. As soon as that happened, I was like, Trump is going to win again, and especially after January 6th, where no real consequences really came of it. If Biden had pulled that, and he never would, unfortunately, but if any Democratic politician had pulled anything like crazy like that, they would be in jail right now because Trump would have prosecuted them. So it was so unfortunate. And I saw even with the trials in New York that he had the amazing AG Letitia James held against him where nothing super came of it. I love that he's a felon now, that he's 40 something felony convictions, but I'm like, what came of it? He's president now. Clearly his felon status didn't really prevent him from doing anything he's doing right now. So I think to me, it was a weak administration, not in the fact that it wasn't effective. I think there's some really great policies. There's that bipartisan infrastructure bill, the whole Build Back Better thing. A lot of, major work that was done in a split Congress, but I would have liked to see a lot more done, not only in support of the Vice President of Kamala Harris to help set her up better for a 2024 run, but also just in, support of Americans and against the passing president, the former president who literally tried to overthrow the election. That's not even an exaggeration. So that to me always got me, they were really stuck on keeping America's ideals, on following the rules in the rule book. And I'm like, the rule book's changed. you know? And I'm not saying that we should overthrow the government either. We should raid the Capitol, but you gotta fight fire with fire. And I'm liking that we're finally sort of kind of hitting the moment right now, meeting the moment, but
Yeah.
that's what always really got me. I have a lot of issues with that administration and with the way they conducted, especially a lot of foreign affairs, with their just undue support for Israel and, you know, the genocide that we've seen them commit against the Palestinian people. But my biggest thing was how they conducted themselves here, you know, in our own country, with the fact that they didn't really prosecute Trump as they should have.
Yeah, yeah. My takeaway from the book, number one, she's 100% running again.
Yeah.
100% running again.
Yeah.
Not only was it like a day by day recollection of the campaign, but every moment that she was able to put in there to separate herself from the Biden administration, or to what you said, really show the limitations of a vice president. She took that opportunity.
She did it.
And she ran with it.
I love that she did it. I love that she did it, because I was like, this is the only thing. And I was talking with my friends and also a lot of campaign staffers and stuff, and I won't reveal names, but I was talking with people. I was like, there are only a few things that she could do, and a lot of it's going to be disavowing the past president. And she's still, the way she's done it, a lot of people would have just, you know, and she talked about in the book, she talked about vice presidential candidates who would have just fully, you know, defamed Biden. But she's still done it in a respectful way, being respectful of his legacy, you know, keeping that in mind, when in reality, you know, the stuff that she was put through, she really has no need to do that, and yet she's continued to, because she's a class act. She's really she's an incredibly sweet, kind person, and ultimately she's in it to work for all Americans. And so, yeah, I'd be 10 toes down for 2028 run. You know, I think it's going to be a really competitive primary. But right now, I think every single person who's aiming for 2028 needs to focus on 2025 and do the work and really, you know,
we got to make sure that we have midterms first. Like, let's make sure we even have midterms.
Let's, you know, like 2020 is great. Let's focus on 2026 and let's focus on 2025 to make sure that we even have like a fair and free election. Because right now, who knows what they could pull? They could put National Guard staffers outside of polling stations to scare us from voting. I've heard
which they are going to do. They are going to do that.
They're going to do stuff like that. And so I think it's so important right now that we focus on midterms and that we focus on the build up to midterms to ensure that we even have them. So, yeah, I like that she's doing the book tour. And I think a lot of people have been like, why is she doing this right now? I'm honestly glad. You know, obviously, like, it's going to make some profit. But I'm glad because it's showing people that there's still so much support, not only for her, but for the cause, for the people, for America. And so it's been really great. It was inspiring. It was honestly really like just enjoyable and pleasant to be in a room full of her supporters in New York City, full of educated people who voted for her. That was a really great experience as well.
So there's a lot in the book that we're going to get into in a very short amount of time. Yeah. But one thing that I just can't stop thinking about, and it kind of goes into talking about the last administration and the way they conducted themselves and there being some disagreements there. But there was always, watching the news, reading the newspapers, seeing social media, there always seemed to be some kind of disconnect between the news that we were getting and a disconnect between like the president himself. I don't know if that makes sense. But I know
exactly what you're saying. One, I think there's always some sort of disconnect in a way, but that was my issue with the administration, you know, with the outgoing administration, with the Biden administration, the Biden White House, was that, to me, and I think the people involved in that White House in his inner circle were also very disconnected, because once you get to D.C., and once you've been here for a few decades, you know, Biden was a career politician. And don't get me wrong, he had many great accomplishments to his name, but this is someone who had been in D.C. for decades. And when you're here for decades, you become very disconnected from the actual issues at hand. And I think that's the same for many politicians, and that's why I encourage members of Congress and senators to be in their districts as much as possible, because that's where you actually get real experience. And when you're here, being driven around in these fancy Escalades and going to these multi-million-dollar galas and fundraisers and fancy dinners and private jets, you become very disconnected from what's actually happening, what's actually affecting the average American. And I think that's an issue for every single politician, but especially for career politicians, like Biden.
Yeah, for sure. To speak to that disconnect, there was like one line in the book that I think she could have maybe spoken a little bit more to it, but it was maybe 2 or 3 lines. It was very kind of like tucked away, but it was talking about the 4th of July event at the White House when Jill Biden wanted to see Doug Emhoff in the Blue Room.
Right. And she asked if he was loyal.
Yeah, asking if he was loyal, the way she composed herself.
What the fuck? Like,
It was almost, and I don't mean to throw shade on Miss Eleanor Roosevelt, but it was almost given Eleanor Roosevelt like pulling the strings behind the curtain vibe, and I was like, that was the disconnect.
Yeah.
That's a disconnect. You have a very loyal vice president, and you're going to question
their loyalty. Like, what? Like, what are we thinking? Like, yeah. And I had a lot of issues with that White House and how they conducted themselves, but a lot of it was just their treatment of their own vice president, historical win for Black Americans. It was a Black woman as a vice president. We never even had a woman as a vice president. This was a first. And the fact that they just sort of discarded her, they never used her for events. They never let her really tour around. So she had to do her own stuff. And yet she still excelled. I mean, a lot of my friends were able to see her at some of the, reproductive rights events that she did. And stuff like that. But she would have been so amazing if they really used her as a surrogate for the White House, because she's an excellent communicator. And not only that, she's just a really good people's person. And we did not see that, unfortunately, in President Biden, because this was a man of, who was clearly aged, who really wasn't in any capacity to continue his presidency. And that's why I was so disappointed, but not surprised when I saw that he was going to keep running. And when I heard, the rumors that he had no interest in dropping out, because I was like, this is just going to hurt all of us. And I think that speaks to that disconnect, where the fact that he still continued to think that the debate that he had, with Trump in the early stages of the 2024 election wasn't as disastrous as it was. The fact that he continues to be like, oh no, I was just sick, it was fine, really highlights the disconnect. And she talked about, in her book, especially in the first chapters, how they would have these meetings, on, I think it was the tennis course, whatever, in the White House, where they discuss campaign stuff, and where his staffers and Mike Donnelly and all those people would give out numbers and just under-exaggerate and not really speak about how bad they were for this country in general. And it was so unfortunate, because when he dropped out, I was in Peru, actually. I was abroad, because I knew that it was not going to be good for us. So I went to go visit mis abuelitos in Peru. I had an amazing time. I started getting so many texts. Like, my phone was blowing up, and people were like, oh my gosh, like, Biden just dropped out of the race. And I was like, oh shit. Like, I was really happy, because this was something I'd been advocating for both publicly and privately, in my own Democratic in my state, their Democratic Party, and just on a national scale, talking to whoever I could, being like, Gen Z was not going to show up for an 80-year-old Biden. They were not going to vote for him. So, and they didn't, they showed up some in 2020, but the majority of their win, came from millennials, came from the older folks. And that's the thing. It's very hard for us young people to get energized about, an old man being in the White House, and Trump's also very old. So it's unfortunate, and that speaks to my passion for age limits and for term limits and all that, because to me, it's like, if you have to be 25 to run for Congress, if you have to be 35, I believe, to run for the presidency, how come you could be a president at like 100 or 120, or like however old you want to be? Like, that's not democratic. And I also think that there shouldn't be any age limits if there aren't any age maximums. Because if the whole process is supposed to be democratic, if the people of that district support an 18-year-old to 20-year-old to run for Congress, why can't they? Like, if you have a concern about experience, about age, don't vote for them. Like, it's that simple. And I'm always talking about it. And a lot of people disagree with me, regardless of their party affiliation, whatever. I'm always like, if there are no maximums, why are there minimums? Because it's simple. If it's a democratic process, it should be that way it should be in the Constitution. But there's so many flaws in our Constitution. I mean, like, when they said all men are created equal, they're literally only talking about rich white men. So we definitely have to do some sort of a revision process. And I think that's what kills me with the way that a lot of Republicans and a lot of politicians in general frame their politics. They frame it as if we're still in the 17th century, as if we're still, not only that, but they frame it as if we have the same America that they did back in 1776, you know, that we have the same current situation. They talk about the Second Amendment all the time. When they wrote the Second Amendment, they had like rifles that were like not high powered at all, like pump action stuff.
I just made this comment on Saturday. I was like, someone in my family made a Civil War comment. I was like, well, honey, I got news for you. You ain't gonna win. They'll have a drone over your head. They'll have an unmanned drone over your head with a bomb before you could even pull out your little pistol.
Before you could even think. Like, as soon as you like type something on social media, they're at your house. And that's the thing. Warfare, modern warfare, is so different, and you don't even really need soldiers to fight these wars. And that's why a lot of stuff is cyber now. I was taking a cybersecurity class my last semester, and just like cyber warfare, and like a lot of stuff that's not even made public, but that they have with hacking and exploits and all that. It's wild because we're fighting so many different wars right now. A lot of it's online as well. You know, a lot of the voices that promote conservative values and that promote civil, you know, disobedience aren't American. They're robots, or they're staffers and people from other countries, from Russia and all that, because they want to create division in American politics. And it's working very well for them now, because all they have to do to get their agendas passed is give $1 million to the president, and boom, they got a meeting at the White House.
Yep. It's disgusting. And to speak to the president, there was another, when I knew I wanted to do this book review episode, there was a part in the book that really stood out to me that I wanted to bring up and make sure that we have it memorialized and get people talking about it, because to keep it on the theme of disconnects, there seems to be with Trump's base this disconnect that he's this like good person. Yeah. But what we all know he's not. We all know he's a con artist.
Right.
And
Kamala, I think a lot of Americans know that as well.
I hope. Like, but I also think there's a lot of Americans that don't realize that he's a con artist. And Kamala laid it out perfectly in the book when he had, I think it was his second assassination attempt, she called him, which more power to her. She's a better person than I am, because I would not have.
I could never. But, and that more speaks to, you know, who she is as a person.
Yeah. And she talked about how he was very complimentary of her, to Doug, complimentary of her speech and all this stuff, and she was appreciative. But then she had to sit back and think, wait, this man is a con artist. This is what a con artist does. And I feel like that perfectly encapsulates the spell that he has under his party and his followers right now. It's like they see him say one nice sentence
at heart, you know, so he knows how to win over people's hearts and their minds and their voting histories. You know, he knows how to indoctrinate people. And I always hear from people, and I think that's some of the issue that we have with our Democratic politicians, is that people love his transparency, because, you know, and he's not transparent in everything he does, but a lot of the shit that he's pulling right now, he said he was going to do that. He said he was going to gut these departments, the Department of Education. He said that he was going to pull back funding from Planned Parenthood and do all this awful stuff. He was very transparent about the awfulness that he was going to pull, and yet people A, ignored it, but B, found it refreshing and transparent. They found it refreshing that he goes off on random tirades about Arnold Palmer's member, you know, all this nonsense. But they don't see that in Democratic politicians, because we are all about putting out the best message and crafting it and getting it approved by consultants and bringing it through 20 different channels before we end up reading basically this just list, you know, off a script, off a teleprompter to Americans. And people aren't stupid, you know, they can tell when something is very scripted and draft, and Trump isn't scripted. He's very off script. He's very just goes off on random tirades and rants because he's got early onset dementia or something. I don't know. Clearly not a well person, but people love that transparency. They find it refreshing. They feel like they're speaking to a man of the people, and that's what he's got them convinced. And yet still a lot of the people I talk to, you know, not here in DC, not really here in New England, but in other states, they'll tell me, they're like, oh, you know, I love how he's transparent. I love how he told me about this, or how he said that, or how he said that prices are too expensive, he's gonna lower them. He doesn't even really make these, he just makes these empty promises, and it works. So we have to match that in our messaging, and we have to find younger messengers. And I think we're finding that right now with people like AOC, with people like Graham Plattner from Maine, you know, younger messengers who aren't necessarily of this political class, but they come from these like working class families. I think that's so much more important.
As we wrap up the final few questions, there was one part towards the end of the book where she said what we're seeing is a high velocity event, and talking about the news, talking about the things that Trump's doing. And I've talked with a lot of people about this in the past few weeks, about how with it being a high velocity event, they're throwing 100 things at us, knowing that we can only focus on one. And so they get away with the other 99 things under the radar. And it's very calculated. And in your profession, in your line of work, in your influencing, in your public engagement, how do you handle that?
I don't.
Like, that's the question. How do you handle that? Because I'm not.
There's no perfect way. And a lot of my work and, you know, the stuff I put out there and the online content, it really doesn't fully encapsulate all that's going on. But you just got to take your shots. You know, you got to fight your battles where you can win, and you're not going to be able to win every battle against this White House, but highlighting the more corrupt bullshit that they pulled, you know, some of the worst atrocities that they're doing, and just working with other messengers to highlight everything really is the best way to do it. But you can't, and I don't, you know, I don't ever really fully feel like I'm meeting the moment, like I'm highlighting every single instance of corruption and of unconstitutional actions that they pulled, because you can't, like, I'd have to be like up 24/7 posting every single minute if I were to, because that's what they do. They flood the zone with all this craziness so that you can't fully target and respond to each and every single instance of just nonsense that they're pulling. So I think it's tough. I don't think there's really any right answer, but just staying engaged and informed, and also not being in this space 24/7. Like, I don't necessarily, I'm not saying like we should all take vacations, but touch some grass, like get outside, hang out with your friends, like, and as much as it seems weird to, and it is weird, hang out with your friends, like remain social, remain engaged, because if you just fully lock yourself in this moment, if you start to lose hope, that's where you lose. That's where they win, because they want us to lose hope. They want us to feel doomed, like we can't do anything to fight back against this administration. But that's not true. Like, why else do you think that they're gerrymandering Texas, that they're trying to gerrymander so many other states? Because they know that these midterm election cycles, it's going to be really bad for them. And so they're pulling all this because ultimately we the people do have the power. And so I think it's so important to emphasize that to everyone, and also emphasize, like, stay engaged, stay informed, but it's totally okay to unplug for a few hours a day. It's totally okay to just spend a day or spend a weekend where you don't read the news, you know. As much as it sucks, as much as it's awful, sometimes you really have to disconnect and just refresh and I don't know, like take a break, you know, so that you can come back to this re-energized and ready to fight again.
So I'm just gonna say amazing answer to that, because I will like wake up in the morning, I plan out my day, have my whiteboard on the wall. I write out the topics we're going to talk about, because I think they're the most important topics for social media from the news that day. And then by the time I record in the afternoon, it's like the news cycle has. It's
wild, and it sucks, because it's like you have like no preparation to this, and we don't have like newsrooms full of staffers and editors and writers and all this. It's like all like a very much one-man show. You know, I've been grateful to begin working with a bunch of my friends to create Fight for America and Fight for America Media. So we're building a greater rapid response, you know, organization to combat a lot of this. But it's tough because you got to find funding, right? Like, we can't do this for free either, because we need healthcare. We need like that. We need to be able to afford to live in an ever so expensive America. So Yeah, but I'm constantly inspired by people who are doing this work, and by people like you, Chad. Like literally, like the work that you've done. I was watching your interview with Alita Grijalva, and I was so
Mm.
inspired by her, and by also just the fact that you're amplifying her work, and that you're in this space, and that you're a messenger for good. It truly is like we need more messengers like you. So thank you, seriously, for doing this and for having me on.
Oh, thank you, James. I always end with my when I have guests, I always end with asking them my favorite question. James, what is it that you are not wrong about? It could be anything.
Oh my gosh.
I
Wow. You
purposefully
know
did
what?
not give
I'm
that to you
not wrong.
beforehand.
I'm not wrong about voting for Kamala Harris. Well, and I didn't vote for her
Mm,
because I wasn't old enough, but I'm not wrong about supporting her, and I continue to stand on that. A lot of people tried to label her and her candidacy and all of that. They don't know her. They don't know her candidacy. They clearly didn't read the book. But I tell everyone, read the book or just read the Spark Notes version. It reveals a lot of
yep.
insights that only people, real DC connections knew. But I just continue to feel a very, I wouldn't say like I told you so notion, like a movement, but I would say that's one thing I haven't been wrong about. I haven't been wrong about all the disastrous policies and bullshit that Trump's pulled. And it's unfortunate because this isn't something I want to be like, I told you so, ha ha ha, because like, look where we are now.
Yeah. Well, listen, James, I appreciate your time, and I am just in awe that you are 18 and you're in this space,
Oh my gosh.
dominating it,
Thank
making the
you.
impact that you're having, talking about hope and not feeling hope in the past year, other than like this book tour. This conversation gives me hope. You give me hope. Whatever I can do to help with Fight for America. When you're in Tennessee, let me know. I'll come
Oh,
up.
absolutely. I'm sure we'll do a few
Keep,
stops at Bama too.
come on, let me know. But I appreciate your time, James. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.